À présent, une histoire qui fait le buzz sur la toile.
Several people were shocked when the Ghanaian Sulley Muntari, playing in the Italian league, was suspended for a match after abandoning a game to protest over racism in the pitch. This was during the Italian Serie A in a match between Pescara and Cagliari. The Italian Football Association has been criticized not taking step over fight against racism.
Well, the Ghanaian-born player walked off the pitch minutes before the end of the game. He pointed to his skin color in protest, asking for equality from the fans. But in a cruel twist, his action immediately earned him a yellow card from match officials for dissent that triggered an automatic suspension for the club's next match. The match officials did nothing to rein in the abuse. Meanwhile, a disciplinary committee set up by Italian league bosses, which handed Muntari the ban, described the actions of the fans as deplorable, but said its guidelines meant it could not impose far-reaching sanctions, as only approximately 10 supporters, or fewer than 1% of the Cagliari supporters, were involved. As a result to this, Garth Crooks, a former Tottenham striker who has actively campaigned to end racism in football, has called on all African players in the Italian league to refuse to participate in this weekend's run of matches in solidarity with the Ghanaian midfielder. We are now joined by Andrew Orsatti, the head of FIFPro Communications and Corporate Affairs, joining us from Amsterdam, Netherlands. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, sir, today. Muntari walked off the pitch in protest against the racist insults, and everyone is condemning the racist taunts. Italian football authorities handed him a one-match suspension. Is this how it works?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of confusion around this topic. On one hand, Sulley Muntari was justified well within his rights to bring the issue to the referee. That it escalated perhaps and the referee did not deal with the situation appropriately, or perhaps language was used by Sulley Muntari that the referee did not agree with, so he cautioned the player with a yellow card. When Sulley Muntari had abandoned the match, the referee issued another yellow card, we're led to believe by the authorities, for him protesting in that way, which is a bookable offence according to their regulations. So, in the end, technically, Sulley Muntari received a yellow card. Again, that's 2 yellow cards, a red card and a one-match suspension. However, when you look at this in the clear light of day and you weigh up all the different elements and you see what happened, the player, the reaction, he's a human being. He is, of course, clearly upset. He went to the referee seeking protection, seeking some kind of understanding to perhaps even pause and think for a moment. The referee could have done a better job to diffuse the situation, is also our view. It was poorly managed in the heat of the moment when emotion was running high. But then, afterwards, to have a couple of days to reflect on what happened and saying, this is unacceptable behaviour, we do not condone racism. Instead, they turned the focus back on the fact that the player who had a very clear grievance which he wanted to deal with, the issue of racism was not being addressed.
Now, racism seems to be more rife in Italian football than in English football. Have any measures been put in place to deal with the situation?
Even in the past, Kevin Prince Boateng, when he was playing in Italy with AC Milan, abandoned a match, and in solidarity, in fact, AC Milan, the rest of his teammates, walked off the pitch together. That was one incident where it flared up. We've seen the issue of racism not dealt with in a very clear, professional manner by the Italian authorities. So we're looking at now, squarely, Italy in this way, where you say, well, how do they, in a cultural sense, deal with racism? How do they accept this issue? If you ask Mario Balotelli about this issue, he too is of the opinion that certain issues are not being dealt with very well, but not only in Italy, he sees it happening in France sometimes, or when he's been playing with teams around the world. So it's not exclusively the domain of Italy, but certainly that country has not shown us in any way, shape or form that it is dealing with it in a manner which you would think fits the 21st century.
And a question that's probably on the minds of so many people all over the world. Will this discrimination in soccer ever end?
It's suffice to say that it hasn't been dealt with in the history of time. However, there are measures in place which say, okay, this is what you do when racism occurs in a stadium. But again, what is going to ultimately eliminate the problem? It's not so clear, is it? I mean, how are we able here as FIFA able to address that other than to put the right deterrent in place, to send the right messages, which the Italian authorities should have done in this instance, to help deal with the issue. Instead, it gives the impression that this behaviour can persist, and now what's going to happen this weekend, we don't know. Maybe it'll happen again. It's just ridiculous to think that we're in this situation.